Hello guys. So ayan, meron kaming dito. Magbabasa kaming dalawa ng anak ko ng Bible. Ayan, dahil wala din naman siyang ginagawa. So ito na lang gagawin namin. Ayan. Ito. My Bible words. So ayan, umpisa na tayo magtaw. So, ang una nating babasahin ay Jesus and the storm.
Jesus and the children.
Okay. So, ayan. Okay.
Jesus and the storm.
Jesus and the storm. Jesus stood in a boat. A fishing boat
with oars and a sail,
and
talked to the many people who had come to hear him. All day long Jesus told them stories. When it was evening, Jesus said to his helpers, "Let us cross over to the other side of the lake and rest."
then
Jesus' helpers untied the boat. They pushed it from the shore and raised the sail. One man sat in the back of the boat to guide it with the steering tiller. The boat moved slowly at first and then faster across the quiet blue water. A round yellow moon came up over the lake. The stars twinkled high overhead. Jesus was so very tired. He lay down with his head on a pillow and was soon sound asleep. The man at the back steered carefully. The boat sailed on and on and on.
on and on. Next.
Suddenly, a fierce
Wind began to blow.
It blew a black cloud over the moon. It blew black clouds over the stars. It whipped
the water into huge angry waves.
The waves tossed the boat this way and that way, and up and down. There was lightning. There was thunder.
Okay.
The man at the tiller tried to steer the boat, but he couldn't. Other men tried to row the boat with the oars, but they couldn't. Water filled the boat.
It began
To sink. The men were afraid. They woke Jesus. "Lord, save us! We perish!" they cried. Oh my gosh. Jesus heard their cry for help. He felt the angry wind. He saw the lightning flash. He heard the noisy thunder. But he was not afraid. He stood up and said to the wind and waves, "Peace, be still." The wind stopped blowing. The waves were still, the clouds went away, and the stars twinkled again. The boat sailed on the sparkling path that the moon made on the water, and crossed to the other side of the lake. "Why were you afraid?" Jesus asked his helpers. "Why were you afraid when I was with you?"
Anong sinabi ni Jesus? Bakit daw?
Jesus says to boys and girls today, Don't be afraid when the lightning flashes, and the thunder crashes, and the strong winds blow. I am with you always, says Jesus, in the dark and in the storm. I will never leave you. Don't be afraid. Jesus the baby. Jesus and the children. Mark and Sarah were waiting with his mother and baby Esther to see Jesus. The other children were waiting with their mothers. Jesus' helpers frowned at them. Can't you see that Jesus is busy? He has no time for children. Mark and Sarah and mother with baby Esther turned slowly away. Mark hung his head and watched the dust of the path squish up between his brown toes. Sarah looked back at Jesus. A tear ran down her cheek.
Then they heard
Jesus say to his helpers, "Suffer the little children to come unto me, and forbid them not." All the children ran to Jesus. Jesus took baby Esther on his lap. He smiled and touched Sarah's cheek, where the tear had run down. He put his hand on Mark's head. The children took turns standing close to Jesus. He told them stories.
Okay, next.
On the way home, Mark whistled a happy tune. Sarah skipped ahead and then she waited and took Mother's hand. "I wish we could see Jesus every day," she said. "Maybe," said Mother, "maybe soon Jesus will come to the temple." One day, Mark and Sarah heard people singing the Hosanna song. They ran to see why the people were singing. They saw Jesus riding on a colt coming down the road. People were laying their coats on the road for him to ride over. Boys were waving palm branches and shouting. Girls were tossing flowers and singing. The parade came to the top of a hill. Jesus stopped the colt and looked down over the hill. The boys stopped waving their palm branches and looked. The girls stopped tossing flowers and looked. All the people stopped and looked down over the hill. What did they see down over the hill? There was a brook down over the hill, a sing-along, laugh-along brook. But they were not looking at the brook. There was a city with a high stone wall, down over the hill. But they were not looking at the city with the high stone wall. They were looking at the temple, the white marble temple, shining like a big snow castle in the afternoon sun. Everyone, yes, everyone, had stopped at the top of the hill to look at the temple, the beautiful temple. The next day, Mark and Sarah and many other children went with Jesus and his friends to the temple. But When they got there, the sounds coming from the temple didn't sound like a temple at all. There was no sound of singing and praying. It wasn't quiet like and hush like with people tiptoeing when they walked. Instead, there was a terrible rackety noise. Traders had brought to the temple cattle and sheep and doves to sell for offerings. They shouted, "Buy cattle for your offering, buy sheep for your offering, buy doves for your offering." The money changers were there collecting their money. It didn't seem like a temple at all. Not at all. It was like a noisy marketplace. It's a dog. Jesus stood in the doorway. The cattle traders looked at him. The sheep traders looked at him. The dove traders looked at him. They all stopped their shouting and selling. The money changers stopped clinking their money. Everyone looked at Jesus and waited to see what he would do. Jesus raised his arm. He said, "Take these things hence." Such a hurrying and a scurrying. The traders hustled the cattle out. They rushed the sheep out. They grabbed the dove cages and ran. The money changers didn't even stop to take their money. All the grown-up people ran away from Jesus. But the children didn't run away from Jesus. Mark and Sarah and all the children crowded close around him. Jesus told them stories. He took the little ones on his knee. A little boy went to sleep on his lap. Then the sick people came to Jesus. A boy with a hurt leg came hobbling on crutches. Jesus put his hand on the hurt leg and made it well. The boy threw away his crutches. Now he could walk. He could run. He could jump. A father and mother brought their sick little girl to Jesus. She was so sick they carried her in a hammock. Jesus took her small thin hand in his. He said, "Be well, little girl, be well." The little girl sat up and smiled. She was well. A boy led a blind man to Jesus. The blind man's eyes